The Frog Army had mobilized. This day marked a very historic day for the people of Puddlehaven. Puddlehaven is where the wetland people have come to seek refuge. Many, many years ago, their leader King Aquilian led his people to the safety that is Puddlehaven. It is nestled soundly within a soup bowl of mountains, keeping the dangers of the rest of the world out. Since coming to these lands, there have been few issues, though not long after their arrival, a new tribe arrived in the valley. They are known as the Nadians. Since finding refuge, they have made life more challenging for all creatures of the valley, taking what was once beautiful land and letting it decay into nothing. This is why the wetlanders are on their way to remove them from the valley, to restore peace. The journey was within a day's march. The valley did not span very far, and the target destination was the only clear field in the valley. As they marched along, other tribes of wetlanders started to merge with the main army. Their force was mighty and to be feared. During their approach, they could see the fly army forming above the trees. Their swarm was to be overwhelming on all of the senses. Like a plague, they spread closer to the battlefield until they could be seen at the edges of the forest. The wetlanders started to take formation at the top of a hill. The grumble of wetlanders started as a simple patter of croaks like a slow rain, until it grew into a loud roar as they chimed in together. This was not met with fear, but the steady hum of the Nadians, who all in unison began vibrating their wings, making a sound that crept into the enemy's heads. Slowly, the two forces merged from their vantage points to meet directly on the battlefield. As both made their way closer, the roars from both sides grew. Suddenly, the two forces launched themselves into an all-out battle, both sides charging with their entire armies. The battle waged on, but this wasn't for long. Suddenly, as if it had appeared out of thin air, a large meteor could be seen falling from the sky. At first, most hadn't noticed and kept the battle going, until slowly their gazes were taken to the sky and both armies had completely halted in awe. The meteor picked up pace until it exploded and crashed into some trees beside the battlefield. Stuck there, frozen like a picture in time, they watched the forest grow in flames, until they saw figures start to take shape, emerging from the blaze. This is when the first of the few found their feet and started running towards the blaze, completely unsure of what they may find. Slowly, more made their way to the inferno, but as soon as they started, the front line halted. These were no natural beings. Like the fiery rage that fell from the sky, these entities began casting hell upon the battlefield. Those that were brave enough held their ground, but most could tell this was no battle to be won. Both armies began to flee from the battlefield, attempting to seek refuge within the forest. With fireballs being cast around, those that did make it to the tree line were more fortunate than most. The battlefield lay waste with friend and foe, but there was a new enemy afoot. As the wetlanders and Nadians merged into the forest, they ignored the opportunity to attack each other, but instead realized the necessity to form a truce, as the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Though the remaining soldiers were fortunate to escape, they were forced away from their villages, left pondering their well-being. Things were not going well. The villages began to spawn fiery life forms, taking shape and absorbing the homes. Chaos ensued, and the rest of the forest started to catch fire in neighboring regions. Soon, all towns inhabited by the wetlanders were engulfed by these supernatural creatures. As the armies fled and the fires grew, it became apparent to the fleeing armies that the Nadians' town people had been unaffected. Even with this clear advantage, the Nadian army pressed through the forest alongside the wetlanders. It was decided they needed to consult the flow masters. These were wise, beaver-like beings that maintained the passages that led into the valley. The leaders of the armies knew that if they could get to these flow masters at the edge of the valley, they would know what to do. Many were left in awe as they had never seen such architecture. Even those that had couldn't help but have their attention taken by the beauty. Every home they passed, they were greeted with gifts and aid. The flowmasters were never one to choose sides, as their interest was only in maintaining a healthy flow in and out of the valley. They maintained the balance, which was proven by their extreme hospitality. Finally, they had made it to the celestial ascent. The stairs were so long that they seemed to disappear into the stars, like you were ascending into a celestial realm. This was a very spiritual place for all in the valley, as they were all descendants of those that took on the arduous journey many, many generations ago. After what seemed like forever, their target destination was finally in sight. This was the location of the Stream Seers. These were the eldest and most wise of the flow masters, the ones who truly control the flow of the valley. When the tribes arrived, The elders knew something dire had happened. They saw the meteor land, but questioned why the fire was spreading so quickly. The leaders described the scene that had been laid out, describing the monsters they witnessed looming out of the forest and the chaos that had uprooted the battle. The elders stood and listened. Before the leaders finished their account, the elders had already begun to devise a plan. One of the elders walked over to a large candle in a window and lit the flame as the others dashed out of the corridor. When the leaders made their way back out, large signal fires in mountains and valleys could be seen lighting one after another. Suddenly, a rumble could be heard in the distance. Then the ground began to shake beneath their feet. Yet the elders that stood amongst them seemed to be patiently waiting. Then you could see it. A great wall of water exploded into view and began to spread itself throughout the valley. It blasted down the valley sides, grazing the homes of the Flowmasters. The homes seemed near perfectly placed for an event like this. The Nadian homes did not fare so well. Though they were sturdy homes, made very long ago, they stood no chance against the explosive force. As for the Wetlanders, their homes were rooted deep into the earth, so those that weren't affected by the fire creatures were able to withstand the flood. The evil creatures that had spawned into the valley were no match. Almost as soon as it began, it was all coming to an end. The creatures began to evaporate from their physical bodies, leaving wooden husks behind as a reminder of their carnage. When things began to settle and the flow of water had marked its path, the tribes of the valley began to find their way back to the site of where the chaos had begun. Right before they could leave, one of the eldest of the stream seers handed the leaders a small satchel and quickly sent them on their way. Making their way down the long, seemingly never-ending stairs, past the homes of those that helped further their journey, through the sporadically singed forest paths and patches of still-burning forest, until finally, they had made it. The battlefield had been swept clean, and all that remained were large craters of water from the flames cast upon the battlefield. The site of the meteor crash was still ablaze, though there was no crater, just a large artifact of twisted metal that had a large radius of heat coming off of it. Nothing could be done of this large artifact for now, as there were bigger tasks at hand. The people of the Nadians had nowhere to stay, as their homes had been completely washed away. One of the leaders came forward with a bundle of scrolls. They had come from the satchel gifted by the Streamweavers. In the scrolls were detailed schematics of homes of the Flowmasters and topographical maps of each region. This would allow the Nadians to rebuild their homes, locating them in a way that should this ever happen again, their dwellings will be safe. The Wetlanders saw this as an opportunity to redeem themselves and strengthen the relations within the valley. The valley could finally see peace, something their elders had dreamt of since the origin of their people.